some C fibers are firing, that's all. No? But how can we deny this experience? So suppose we are seeing some movie, okay, and so we go through some experiences, emotional experiences as we see the movie. Sometimes we are very happy. Sometimes there is some sad scene, we are sad. So there is another video which is also seeing that it has been recorded through video, that particular scene. And we are also seeing that. But what is the difference? We are also seeing by our eyes. Drama or movie, whatever it is. So therefore, intuitively and with common sense, we cannot understand that how these machines are equated with human beings. Like, let's take now computer. Suppose you do some mathematical function using computer, say square root of 9. Okay. So with the help of computer, or with any calculator, so we just press a button, square root, and then we get it done. But actually, in the computer, how this happens, square root, this function is achieved in computers. So in computers, there is a hierarchy of organization, correct? So ultimately, there are microchips, and there is a very simple basic function with each step, add 1, minus 1, transfer this digit to this spot, and then from this spot, add 1, minus 1, like that, very simple commands, ultimately at the very basic level of in the computation. That is what is happening. Many such steps arranged in a logical fashion ultimately make that function happen, say square root of 9. Okay, correct? So, but ultimately, we see that, okay, square root of 9 is being done. But what is happening in the computer is always that very basic step, add 1, subtract 1, take this thing to this spot, from this spot to this, nothing else. So computer itself can never be conscious of that. These all steps are the steps of 9. So there is a book, Consciousness, the Missing Link. In that, the algorithm is given for square root. So if you are given that algorithm, so as in computer, how we do, we break down that thing into different steps, correct? And then finally that result comes. So if you are going through, if you don't know what you are doing, that you are finding a square root, you are just following the command step by step. Step number 1, okay, a digit is given to you, a numerical value is given to you, and you are just given a command. Add 1 to first digit, do this, like that. You are following that thing. So you will not be aware of what you are doing. You are just following the command step by step. Each individual step is not equated with the final thing, that is square root. You are just doing a small thing, a small order at one time. You are only conscious of that small factor, a small step at any given time. But at the end, you do the square root, but you are completely unaware of what you did. You can do that exercise. It's given there in that book. So that shows that computer, that hierarchy is there. So because of that, ultimately that function is done. But computer is never conscious of this higher functions, because it is doing just that small step always. This is only just because of the hierarchy that higher functions are being done. So similarly, because the computers and the brain, they are working in a similar fashion. So we are the person who actually are experiencing that, okay, now this is the square root being done. So there is a different entity required to make sense of what is being done by the computers. Because computer is just doing very simple thing, adding, subtracting like that. These higher functions are just some different entities required to read that as a square root. The computer doesn't read this as a square root. It is just doing a very simple basic function. So similarly, in our brain, there are at any given time hundreds and thousands of neural interactions are happening. Chemicals and different electrical impulses, everything is being happening. But to read that, you need some entity which is very complex. To read that all pattern is there, but to read that, like suppose now I am happy, and now you are sad at this moment. So scientists can find out if we do a scan of the brain. So there is a particular neuronal pattern of my brain and your brain. And then when we will examine, this pattern will be different than this pattern. Okay, but it's still the pattern is not that experience of pain and pleasure. Pattern is pattern. Pattern in itself is not conscious. Pattern is just pattern, correct? But there has to be some entity who is reading that pattern as pain and reading this pattern as pleasure. Are you getting this point? Pattern is different from the experience. Pattern corresponds to that experience. So we can delineate, okay, whenever there is pain, this is the pattern. Whenever there is pleasure, this is the pattern. That doesn't mean we have found out the cause of happiness and pain. Pattern is connected to that experience, but pattern in itself is not the experience. Correct? When you hit somebody with with something, cry. Ah! So you can say, this pattern, and this is common. Everybody who cries, this is it. But this pattern is not the experience of pain. This is a behavioral pattern. So behavioral pattern is different from the experience of pain. Okay. So similarly, whenever there is pain, we can find out some particular chemicals in the blood. They say P factor. They have found out there. Whenever there is pain, there is some factor. But it's still, that chemical is not that experience of pain. You can fill that chemical in a drum, still that drum will not experience that pain. So this is a very simple fact that chemicals, electrical patterns, electroneural patterns, they are connected with, they are related to the experience of pains and pleasure and consciousness. They are related, but they are in themselves not experiencing that. Like for example, now I am working through this computer. All my data is there inside this. Now, suppose this computer crashes. Will I be affected or not? I will not be affected. I will not be able to do anything. All my data, all my password, my bank, I will not be able to operate. So many things I will not be able to do. Correct? So because I am acting through this computer, if this computer crashes, I am affected. But I am still completely separate from this computer. Still, I will get affected by that. So similarly, this neural patterns and chemicals, because I am acting through these, I get affected with that, with the changes in the chemicals and patterns, but still I am different from these patterns. Correct? So just because we are able to identify certain patterns connected to particular aspects of consciousness, that doesn't mean that we have understood that phenomena of consciousness, because it's still all those patterns and all those chemicals, ultimately, they are not, they don't build up to consciousness. Therefore, one of the scientists, he said, in my search of life, I ultimately ended up with electrons and protons, which are not conscious. There is no life in that, electrons and protons. So somehow, on the way, life slipped away from my fingers. And in the end of my days, I am retracing my path, where the life has slipped. So this is what is happening. Science is trying to understand life by reductionist approach. So reducing. They end up with electrons and protons. But electrons and protons, there is no life symptom left. So you reduce to simple things, but then life is not there. The life symptoms, they were there in the human being, but they are not there in the life in the electrons and protons. So life has somewhere gone away. Same thing. You collect all the chemicals which are present in the living forms. You collected them from the living forms. But when you collect them together, it is not life. Are you seeing this point? All the chemicals you can collect from the living forms. But then in the process of collecting the chemicals, the life you are not able to extract. You only extracted the chemicals, but life stays separate from the chemicals. Therefore, these chemicals together does not combine together to form life. Okay, so this is one way how to understand these things. Now, another way is that there are many phenomena which indirectly, circumstantially, they tell that consciousness should be a separate entity, completely different from matter. So now we will see a few such phenomena which are being scientifically studied. Like, there is one phenomena called near-death experience. What is near-death experience? Near-death experience means it's an experience of some individuals when they were very close to death. When they were very close to death, practically they were unconscious. That means the brain was not working, because modern science thinks that the brain is the seat of consciousness. Consciousness is just the functioning of the brain. So brain is not functioning. So practically, scientifically speaking, they should not be experiencing anything at that time, because brain is not working. But these individuals, they were very near to death, but they did not die. They survived. Afterwards, they were able to tell their experiences at that time when they were very near to death, and experiences very much correlated with the reality at that time. They should be completely unaware of the reality of the things around, but they were aware of the things around, even though they were unconscious. So if consciousness is nothing but brain activity, how it is possible that when the brain is not working, still a person is able to experience? These are the questions raised. So this is one example, what you see in the slide. This is one American singer, Pam Reynolds. So she was operated for basilar artery aneurysm. Aneurysm means there are blood vessels, and then in the blood vessels, because of the weakening of the walls or different causes, there is a bulge in the wall of the artery. So anytime it can burst and it can cause hemorrhage. So basal artery in the brain, in the base of the brain, this artery is there. This is called basal artery. And this aneurysm was in that artery. So in any artery, this aneurysm can happen, but this particular aneurysm, swelling, you can say, was in that place. So it is a very, 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 very difficult place to operate. If there is some artery in the hand, you can easily operate. But this artery was in the base of the brain. So it's a very risky operation. What was required that her temperature had to be reduced. Then only the surgery could be done. And so she agreed finally for the surgery, and the surgery was performed, and she survived that surgery. So very interestingly, means her temperature was below what human beings have constant temperature, fixed temperature. Okay. But for the surgery, because it was the artery, that blood flow, everything, the temperature had to be reduced. All this was done. So completely, of course, unconscious. But it was very wonderful that after the operation, she could tell the things which were happening in the operation on the operation table. Uh, certain a certain discussion between the surgeon and the nurse, which she could tell that this is what was happening at that time, and I was experiencing, I was listening that. And this is not one experience like that. There are many such instances where such things have happened. So this is a phenomena, near death experience. And there is one scientist, Dr. Sobon, and he's a cardiologist. So he has also studied this phenomena among the cardiac arrest patients. The patients, heart attack hua, resuscitation kiya, they could be revived back. But they were in the coma stage. But they could tell precisely what happened to them. So such phenomena make us think that consciousness is different from brain activity, because brain activity was not there at that time, but still experience was there. So that shows that experience, consciousness is different from brain. So this is what this cardiologist Sobom says. Could the mind, which is splits apart from the physical brain, be in a sense the soul, which continues to exist after final bodily death, according to some religious doctrines? As I see it, this is the ultimate question that has been raised by reports of near-death experience. Now, another phenomena, past life memories. Past life memories. This is a very interesting field, very important field for this consciousness study. There are so many cases documented, well studied by scientists, and happening not just in India, throughout the globe, amongst different cultures, even among the atheists who don't accept that there is God, even amongst them, such phenomena is happening, well documented by scientists. This past life memories. Like in India, there was a famous case of Shakuntala. You can Google that. Shakuntala is a famous case. So the person remembers previous birth. In different ways, it has been ascertained that there is no other possible means that this child should able to remember the facts which the child is telling. Father's name, mother's name, and certain things about the house, which are presently not there, but when investigated, yes, what she told previously, it was like that. Now, after some last 10 years, it was changed. Some door placement of the door, placement of the window. But she was able to tell that Shakuntala. So, like that, it is well documented that it is not possible by any other way that there's a rebirth. So, science is a case of reincarnation. Like that, there have been many cases. Like there is one documentary of a boy who uh, who somehow knew so many things about warfare, about the warfare planes, and he was always talking of some friend of his and how he died in a plane being shot. His plane was shot. And whenever he will go to some museum depicting planes, he will tell things which are impossible for that child of that age. And parents were they were not Christians, or they were not Christians also don't believe in reincarnation, but they were not coming from that culture background that where reincarnation is accepted. And when they investigated, they found that there was a person of that name whom he used to say, my friend, is still alive from the Second World War. And he traced and he met that person, and he found that how all the details which his son used to tell, they all were they correlated with those findings. So like that. So this is a important phenomena which very strongly suggests that at the time of death we don't die.
Sir,
Next, Hare Krishna, there is some question or what?
yes, sir. Sir, you
We will have questions at the end. Is there any problem in this thing?
no, only question about this. Fine. Okay.
Okay. So just wait for some 5-10 minutes. I'll finish. Afterwards, we will take questions. Okay. Okay. So another phenomena is the phenomenon of inspiration. Phenomenon of inspiration. Many scientific discoveries, many not just in the science field, but like Mozart, the musician. So, like Mozart, he said that the melodies which he is able to come up with, it appears that he is not putting any conscious effort there, but at certain time it just appears in his mind, full frame, fully in full form. Similarly, this structure of benzene, the scientist who discovered the structure of benzene. So he was working on that for quite some time. But then at one particular moment, he was just working and fall half asleep. And in that state, he just visualized in semi-conscious state that there is a snake, and his tail is in the mouth of another snake, and the tail of that snake is in the mouth of another snake. Like that, he just had a dream, and he just woke up, and he said he found out the structure of benzene, the hexagonal structure of benzene. Like that, then this Curie, Peter Curie and Madame Curie, who discovered this radioactivity. So again, their experience, it was how they discovered these things. They just discovered, it appeared that they just fully appeared in their mind, the solution. So in that book, there is a book, Rethinking Darwinism. So all these phenomena are described there. You can read that book. So, so even this type of phenomena, near-death experience, and hypnotic regression, this is another thing. There was one person who was always fearful of water. Phobia, like we have many times this phobia. So always fearful of water. So he was just worrying, he was a bold man, everything is all right. Just by water, he will always experience fear. So, so he underwent this psychological hypnotic regression. And then in the hypnotic regression, it was found that he actually died in the previous birth within the sea. He was some soldier who used to be what do you call Pandubi, some submarines. So he died in the submarine. Water just gushed. There was some problem there, and water just gushed in, and he died. So like that, there are many such instances. Similarly, in this reincarnation, many times this birth marks have been corroborated with previous lives, like birthmark at the temple at this place, and with hypnotic regression or with previous life memories, it was found that this person was shot dead by a bullet here. So there has been many books written, birthmark and corresponding with the previous birth experiences. So like that, this type of phenomena also make us think that this to explain life completely in terms of mechanistic term, we should rethink about it. We have not been able to explain that in mechanistic terms. On the other hand, there are phenomena, such phenomena, which raise very big questions. So therefore, we should be open for other paradigms, as we have been discussing in last few classes, and always we discuss this thing here in ISKCON, that there is a Vedic paradigm. To answer such questions, we find very logical answer there, and not just logical, as I told you in the just 2 classes before, there is a way how we can verify these things. It is not just an explanation, but it is something which can be verified. You know? So I told you about the purification of consciousness, and personally, subjectively, each one of us, whoever is following that process, can verify all these things given in the Vedas. So this is a science. Veda is also science because it is verifiable. But our parameters of verification will differ. We cannot expect that verification is only possible in a given set of conditions, because there are things in different realms. So not like, for example, if we have to study some phenomena which happens only in water, we cannot verify or disprove that in air. So different set of elements, different parameters are required. So similarly, for consciousness study and verification, we need a different set of parameters to verify that. So in Vedas, there is a very clear-cut description how this consciousness is irreducible. This consciousness is immaterial. It is not material. It is therefore it's not reducible like matter. Consciousness is due to a spiritual entity which is called Atma, and Atma has properties which are completely different from matter. But presently, this Atma is encapsulated in matter. So therefore, when we see a living entity, that is a combination of matter and spirit. So certain things we can duplicate. Material body, bodily behavior. So robots, they are partial human beings, because we are combination of 2 things, matter and spirit. So the material aspect, we are able to understand and duplicate in material terms. That's what we are doing. But we are not able to duplicate a living entity completely, because this aspect, this spirit aspect, this consciousness aspect is non-material, which we are not able to understand and duplicate in material terms. Okay. So, and presently this soul is inside the body, and soul is acting through the body. And when we say body, there are 2 levels of body, subtle body and gross body. Subtle body means mind, intelligence, and ego. This mind, intelligence, and ego, the soul is interacting with the outside world through this subtle and gross body. And this thinking, feeling, willing, even like presently we are discussing, is mind and body same? But actually, in Vedic understanding, even the mind is only matter. Mind is all actually mind and brain. They are not one, but they are both matter. Mind is also matter. Vedas say that beyond the mind there is soul. Beyond the mind there is soul. So soul is utilizing this mind element to interact with outside world. So how we can understand that we are not this mind even? How do we understand that we are not this body? With common sense. So presently, in our wakeful state, we identify ourselves with body, correct? With our situation where you are. So who you are, you will tell your name, Abhiroop. Okay, Abhiroop. And further, I am a student of VIT. Okay, this Presently, you identify yourself with this thing, that you are a student, you are male, such and such are your father, mother. All this description is in terms of your body, correct? Now, when you go to sleep, you are dreaming something. At that time, if somebody asks who you are, then you will not tell that I am a student of VIT, I am this. You will, at that time, you will identify yourself with what you see in the dream, you in the dream, correct? And you will experience according to that identity. Presently, you are experienced according to body identity. Present, correct? In the dream, you will identify yourself with that identity of the dream, and you will experience also according to that. Correct? Like you are something, anything. You are in a, you are going to appear for exam. I used to have such dreams. I'm going to appear for exam, MBBS or some medical exams, and I'm not prepared. I'm not read anything. So a lot of fear in the dream. I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared. And the moment you get up, relief. There is no exam. There is no. But in the night, that identity that I am a medical student and I'm appearing for exam was very real for me. It was completely as real as in the daytime, my identity today that I am a monk in ISKCON. I am such so and so. It is exactly as real as this identity. Correct? So if I am this body, then this should continue in my dream also with me. It should always be with me. How can I get separated from this identity if I am this body? That means I am different from body and I am a seer of body. So one time I'm identifying myself with this body and this situation associated with this body. At another time, I am associating myself with another situation, with another body, which is mental body. Okay, that means I am the observer. So I am different from what is being observed. See, there is observed and observer. So therefore, by this phenomenon of dream, we can see that we are observing our body. That means we should be different from our body. Okay. Now, just consider dreamless sleep. The phenomenon of dreamless sleep. So there is wakeful state, there is dreaming state, and then there is third state called dreamless state. Correct? So what happens to us in dreamless state? In the wakeful state, body is working, mind is working. In dreaming state, body is not working, mind is working. In dreamless state, body is not working, mind is also not working. Okay? But when we wake up from a dreamless state, we have experienced, आज बहुत अच्छी नींद आई, कोई सपना नहीं देखा आज. Correct? आज कोई सपना नहीं देखा, बहुत अच्छी नींद आई. That means your mind was not working, your body was not working, but something was working. Something was still experiencing. Therefore, you could have experienced, na, आज बहुत अच्छी नींद आई, आज कोई सपना नहीं देखा. So that means somebody was still at the background observing something. क्या सपना नहीं देखा? Somebody was experiencing that. So this gives us an idea that we are not the body, we are not the mind, we are different from this. Rather, we are observing. But untrained mind, untrained soul, it associates itself with the body and mind in such a strong way that we tend to think that I am this body and I am the mind. But just see, when somebody dies, our some relative or somebody, if we happen to be at that point, that immediately we realize, no, it is a dead body now. The person is gone. No? So, so like that, in this different, using common sense, using the science and various phenomena, there is a very strong case that we are different from this body. We are soul. We are conscious. Consciousness is not material. So this brings home a very important then understanding that if we are different from body, then what is the goal of life? Life is not just matter. So then, what is the soul's eternal duty? What is the function of soul? Why this soul is presently encaged in body? And because of this engagement, it is suffering birth, death, old age, disease. Is there a way that this soul can be liberated from body? All these questions therefore become very important. Our whole worldview, our whole understanding about who I am, what I should do in my life will change if we understand this fact that we are not this body. So therefore, in conclusion, we all should very thoughtfully try to understand this phenomenon of consciousness, because this is referring to who we are. Unless we understand who we are, whatever else we do in our life is useless. Because if we do something which ultimately is not fulfilling my real needs, then at the end or sometime in our life, we will feel cheated. We will feel that I have deceived myself. I have kept myself in ignorance. I spent my time doing something which has got no relation with me. It did not help me because I did not understand who am I. So therefore, this question should be understood. So Bhagavad Gita and our Vedic texts give a very lucid explanation of this phenomenon of consciousness. So with this, we will end the session. Hare Krishna. Now open for questions. Somebody had a question online, viewers? Am I audible or not? Audible? I think it was ASD. Yes, who is ASD? No. Anyway, anything else? Yes. In which cases? We cannot create a life like just getting all the chemicals in our body. We can take analysis. We cannot create a life. And one other case, when soul left our body, its body cannot create one. So now in modern science, like they created clone, like transgenic for various use, for organic creation, some many problems. So they can create clones, but how can they generate a life? Like just by use all the things needed. Or differently they using the small unfertilized formula, they created formula like artificial environment for that. But how can they generate the life? Like soul actually depends like which kind of karma we did, like that we can get our needs like that as much as possible. So how it is possible? So because they already successfully stored and translating and we can have the documentary studies on that. So how can it be possible? Okay, just for the online viewers, the question is that yes, it is true that scientists cannot assemble the chemicals found in the living beings and generate life, but in the process of making clones, they are artificially creating an environment and clones are being produced which have life. So from the Shastra, we understand that soul is given a body according to its karma. So, so how is it that a clone has got life? Correct? You can make a body. That is possible. Generally, only God can give us a soul as but how can they put life on? How can they put life? So you see, everybody is creating life. It is not just the scientists who are creating life. Every man and woman, when they combine, they create life. Correct? So when they are making clones, it is not that they are making life. They are making a suitable environment for the life to come. That every one of us is doing. When we are procreating, that's what we are doing. Okay. Now the question is, whenever there is a favorable apparatus ready for the life to come, then the life can come there. Like plants or anything. So there are different ways of procreation. There is not just one way. There is budding process. Different processes are there. So suppose there is a budding process is there, then you just take a stick, cut it, and then life will appear in that cut part. Even earthworms. If you cut the earthworm, a particular part, then that part will also become alive. So wherever the situation of a body is suitable for life to live, life to sustain, then life can enter there. And karmic reactions, there are millions and millions of different forms and different types of sufferings. So this is also one form of suffering. So a particular type of karmic reactions for different type of sufferings can be given that body. Because this, what different forms and what different types of sufferings in the karmic reactions, that is something which is not, we cannot calculate. Okay, Lord has only this many varieties and this many sufferings. So a general thing is there that some particular body, some particular thing, suffering. So clone is made anyway, eating, sleeping, eating, that is there. So that karmic reactions to enjoy and suffer, that eating, sleeping is happening in that body also. In the body of clone also it is happening. So what is the problem for soul to enter into that body then? When it can enter into the body of plants, small insects, small bacteria. So why not in a clone? It's only that we are, to certain extent, we are meddling with the laws. So we are given certain freedom to meddle. Like you can take some medicine, and by that you can produce a child which is having no limbs, thalassemia. No, not thalassemia. There was one drug which was used for some other purpose, for contraception. And the result was that congenital disorders happened. So by our endeavor, we disturb the laws of nature. So human beings, by misusing the intelligence, they can meddle with the laws of nature to some extent. So clone is another example of that. Like example of taking a drug and producing some deformed bodies. There also soul will come because body is deformed, but still it is capable to sustain life. Okay, so now the soul, which has to suffer those type of karmic reactions, will enter into that body. Though we meddled with the nature, still that soul can come there. So similarly, this cloning is another way of meddling with the nature. So
manipulating, normally there are lots of process from lower element to higher element for producing another organism like that. Like for bacteria, for higher element, there are a lot of cases. But like making a clone kind of like manipulating the procedure of like making a lots of element.
Yeah, we are manipulating. We are just understanding the process and doing it in a certain stage. We are doing it outside. In cloning, what we are doing, the egg that we are taking and then giving it an artificial environment like other things, surrogate mothers and all. So what we are doing is we are studying the procedure, what is designed by nature, and then we are artificially trying to do it. So that's okay. But ultimately, if the environment is created for the life to sustain, then it can come there.
What assignment is sold for all like as per that assignment for that. So for these manipulating cases, so God also assigned source.
No, see, there is a general description that soul has to suffer karmic reaction. It is not this way or that way. So eating, sleeping, waiting, depending, and karmic reaction, suffering is there. Now we are given certain parameters to meddle with. It is not that whenever we interfere, at that time, God completely goes out of that picture. We are always meddling. We are always meddling with to some extent, anything, whatever we are doing. So some freedom is given to us. Like a cow is there, tied with some stick, with a rope. So it has some freedom, only certain freedom, not all the freedom. So similarly, we human beings have been given some freedom because we are also part and parcel of God. We have some creativity and destructivity. So that much freedom is given to us. So otherwise, we will not be able to, our willpower, our desires, we will not be able to fulfill. So desires, and according to that, the reactions are only because of that scope which is given to us to play. So cloning and all these different things come within that purview of what you are assigned to do, to meddle, to play. But there is a limit to that. You cannot go beyond that limit.
So even though we are manipulating these laws of nature, so they will basically come for that.
Yes. They will directly come up for that. But that freedom is given to some extent. You can play with the laws.
Inspiration. So the source of inspiration, as per Shastra, is God.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, sometimes people ask that the same question: if everything is destined to happen, what is our role in that? Astrological charts and everything is very precisely given from astrology. But there are astrologers who can predict very precise details what is going to happen in our life. So the phenomenon of destiny comes and what we can achieve, what we can do becomes a question mark because everything is predestined. So when this inspiration comes, how God is giving, how our independence is there is one question. What is the role of our independence? And is it that inspiration is the way how our destiny is being controlled? Because everybody is waiting for the inspiration. Is it that the destiny is being controlled through inspiration?
So question is that inspiration phenomena, so is the destiny, the inspiration is part of execution of destiny, or how ultimately the destiny materializes. And second part is this is a little different question. The question is that with astrology, a good astrologer can predict to very minute details of what will happen to us. So then it seems that everything is already predestined. So if we are souls, if we have some independent free will, how to harmonize this? Because if everything is destined, then there is a question of our independence. So inspiration is one way, definitely, how destiny and our present efforts both are being materialized. Because both things go hand in hand. Destiny means what? Destiny means reactions to previous life's actions. And present life also we are doing action. That is also creating reactions. So a scientist is working hard, or a musician is trying hard, or he's into it, he wants to do this. So his present efforts and his previous life efforts, both are judged according to the laws of karma, and they are awarded a result. So this result comes in different forms. So even the motivation to do something, the desire to do something, to continue to pursue that, even that is also the destiny, and our karma fall is playing a part, and Lord sitting in our heart is getting it done through the agency of mind, intelligence, and everything. So yes, that is definitely a part of destiny and the present karma fall. And second part, astrology. A very good astrologer will also tell that those who are surrendered to the Supreme, even though something which chart shows that it should happen like that, but it can also change. It's a very known fact among the traditional astrologers who understand astrology from the Vedas, from Parampara, that this astrology, it can vary, especially for devotees and even for others. It gives a general description. Like there was one thing, the chart said that he will not have home, but that he will not have home can mean many things. He can be in prison, or he can be a sadhu who is a mendicant, who is roaming here and there. So that is also known fact in astrology, that it doesn't, it gives an idea, and within that so many things can happen that can operate. So therefore, not that everything is that way destined in that precise.
So how a destiny materializes? How it happens? Can we say that it happens by giving us particular inspiration? The destiny will give us an inspiration and we will be forced back in that.
Not just inspiration, the situation you are faced in. Yeah, somebody comes and hits you. Yeah, inspiration, or it can be just no person involved. Earthquake. Is that?
External situations.
Yeah. The very birth. The that whole constellations at that time. See, such a science. According to the karmic fall, what one is going to experience, he is given birth at a certain time, so that accordingly his mind, body, everything will be framed, and in future also whatever will happen can be precisely understood by reading that chart. He took birth at this time, so he will be of this nature. And that nature is coming because he did like this. He desired like this, so he should get this nature. And to execute that, he should get this nature, and the influence of all the stars and everything is being used by God. Yes.
If intelligence is different from consciousness, then how can some people remember instances of past?
If intelligence is different from
consciousness, then how can some people remember instances of past?
That's the very reason that consciousness, intelligence has got two parts, like artificial intelligence. There's one part of it is some sense data is coming in, and then you are responding to it. That is one part of intelligence. But another part associated with that intelligence is the experience of that. Okay, I am doing it. So artificial intelligence is one part of the whole phenomenon of consciousness. That is only the behavioral part. It is not the experiential part. In the living beings, we have two things together. There is an experience, and then there is a response to a stimuli. So a response to a stimuli, we can, with artificial intelligence, we are also doing that. Okay. Suppose a robot is there. You put a sensor. If there is anybody in the cars, now you have sensors. If there is anybody with this distance, it will sense. Okay, something is coming closer. Hey, something. So this is like a response to a stimuli. That is one part of intelligence. But it is also about experience. That we experience. Oh, somebody is coming to kill me. That experience. The robot can also be said, okay, whenever a person with a knife is shaped and this is there, And oh, somebody's coming to kill me. You can program that. But you can also program, very nice, please come and kill me. You can also program that. But you cannot do that with a living being. Because that experience is not there, it's just a program. You can program anyway, this way or that way. So, therefore, how we can remember our past life experiences? Because soul is transferred from one body to another. And this consciousness is the property ultimately of the soul. So, when we say soul, so there is a subtle body which goes along with the soul, which is material, but it comes along with the soul. So these experiences are stored, memory, everything is stored in the subtle body, which goes along with the soul. So therefore, in the next life also, these memories, these things can be there because this subtle body is coming along with the soul. Does that answer the question? Yes. How the previous memories can come. So this is because along with the soul, there is subtle body which is also carried on. Something is being transferred, something is not being killed at the time of death. Something is being transferred.
So certain experience get carried away by soul, you're saying?
Any question?
Hello?
Okay. Shall we stop here?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, you can ask a question.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I can hear you. Please.
Sir, you're saying that certain experiences get carried away by the soul to the next life.
Yeah. So, what is the question?
So just the continuation of the previous question, like do certain experiences like that we experience, they get carried away to our next life by the soul? Like,
Acha. Okay. So you are saying, is there certain type of experiences which are carried to the next life? You see,
yeah,
whatever we do in this life and whatever we desire in this life, that creates an impression in our subtle body. That impression is carried to the next body. Like you see, there is a seed of a tree from which that whole tree comes. So whatever we do, according to the laws of karma, a reaction, a result is created, which this result is to be experienced in coming lives, because it is not that whatever we do in this life, all the results we experience in this life alone, because there is a continuum of ourself. Soul is continuing. It is just changing, like changing clothes. Soul is changing the bodies. So according to what we do, if we have to suffer or enjoy a result of particular activity in the coming body, in the coming life, then that resultant is formed in our subtle body in a subtle form, and along with the soul, that subtle body continues in the next life, and based on that stored impression in the subtle body, gradually the result is being created. For example, suppose in this life I did some sin, and because of that I have to suffer a disease, say some disease, whatever, chronic disease, some mental disease, in my next life at an age of 20 years. So when I do that sinful activity today, then by the laws of karma, which are governed by higher entities called devatas, by the mechanism, subtle mechanism, a result is formed in the subtle body of mind, and I die, and this subtle expression in my subtle body is carried to my next life, and then the body which I will get in the next life will be such that at the age of around 20 years, I will develop that disease. So this subtle impression, the subtle body forms the gross body. So in this way, my impressions are being carried away. So the experiences which we have, these experiences also, in general, these experiences will not be as such carried away to the next body. Only the resultant reaction of those things will be carried. But in some particular cases, there can be a also. So like I told some examples of people remembering their previous life or being fearful of water. So in some cases, those memories are also carried because ultimately memory is in the subtle body. So in some cases, they are being carried. But generally, the experiences in toto are not carried away. Only the resultant reaction of the activities are being carried away to the next one. Did it answer your question or did I not get your question?
Yes, sir. You got the question. Yeah, it answered.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Okay. Any other question? Okay. Hare Krishna. Shalom.